Right away, let me address what I'm after here. Your own rules for you, for how you operate in life. Not rules you think other people should live by, not rules that were placed upon you by others, and certainly not rules you've created for how anybody but you should act. Your rules for yourself. It's very easy for us to unconsciously apply our rules outside of ourselves. It's the main reason people disagree and become emotional about it. Tony Robbins would say that we're not usually mad at others. We're mad at their rules because they differ from our own. Two words I sometimes use interchangeably with rules, though don't always mean the exact same thing, are values and principles. You'll see that every video is summarized with a principle that I've made for myself and offer to you as an idea for you to consider. Rules is mostly a catch-all word for me to incorporate everything one aspires to live by. But for the sake of the series of the videos, I will offer distinctions. Values. Concepts that are wholesome and enduring, aren't likely to be affected by progress, technology, politics, etc. Things like integrity and helpfulness, or to protect and serve. Principles. Reflections on how to do things better in the future. Tenets that flesh out who you are and are a guiding light to you. Things like, when questioning humans, start with yourself. Core principles. Your main 3 to 5 principles that the rest grow from. Things like, be a good human. Rules. All values and principles plus all the little incidental lessons you tend to apply continuously in your life. Can include small experiential gems like, always put your wallet and keys in the same place. It's worth it to view a few examples so that we're on the same page here. I'll provide 2 sides to each example to demonstrate different perspectives. Your rule might be to never raise your voice in anger. Theirs might be that they yell when they're angry because it's cathartic, or that's how they express their anger. Your rule might be that exceeding the speed limit is okay as long as you're still being safe. Theirs might be that even a tiny infraction is still breaking the law and should be avoided or punished. Your rule might be that when you're running late, people should see the anxiety on your face and make a path. Theirs might be that being late is your own damn fault and they shouldn't have to inconvenience themselves because you snoozed your alarm. Your rule might be that the death penalty is fitting for certain crimes. Theirs might be that it's never okay to willingly take a human life. Your rule might be that God watches over us. Theirs might be that there is no single entity guiding our lives. I got rangy there to make a point. All the stuff you believe and all the ideas you have that you think are good tend to cause you to create rules out of them, and that covers a ton of ground. Sometimes we've had rules given to us. Many doctrines are passed this way from parent to child. Plenty of our rules come from our own experiences. I'm never going to that place again. We can be taught rules that we'd like to incorporate. We can get ideas and turn them into rules for ourselves. We can be acclimated to others' rules so that eventually they seem like our own. What makes this tricky is that everybody has their own rules, especially in a country with free speech, and virtually no 2 people's set of rules are identical. Which means we are bound to butt up against somebody else's rule that doesn't align with our own. Let's take a maxim that I believe belongs in every culture. Seek first to understand. It's a straightforward and kind effort. You try to see the other person's point of view before attempting to convince them of yours. If you're having a disagreement with somebody, you can't demand that they seek first to understand. That doesn't even make sense. It's making you a hypocrite, obviously, because you're not seeking to understand them. So if that's a principle of yours, then the only option available to you is to ask questions until you feel like you're aware enough of where they're at. As a bonus, you might even confirm with them what you see them saying aligns with what they're actually feeling. In the right hands, this becomes 2 people having a polite off, both wanting the other person to go first so they feel heard. This is a great problem to have. In the wrong hands, this is 2 people demanding from the other that they shut up and listen. I've seen both, and I've even had the displeasure of working with someone who used this maxim as a weapon. She was a very disturbed and troubled woman. I quoted Ray Dalio at the top of this video. He's a personal hero of mine and wrote the book Principles, which I highly recommend. He gets the majority of credit for this idea I'm espousing to get thoughtful and reflective in creating a set of rules that you operate by, based on plenty of context and a view of how they can best serve you. People have unproductive rules. Pretty much everybody probably has at least one, maybe in the form of an unproductive habit, a thing you can't stop yourself from doing, an emotional reflex, ways you let a particular person treat you, etc. Here I'd like to opine on the value of creating productive rules for yourself and ways to know them intrinsically. I'll get into applying your rules in healthy ways in the next part of this series. Values. Less like rules and more like what your heart desires. It's right in the name. It's what you value from your life experience. If we're aligned with our values, we tend to give what we want and the community benefits. Your main value might be integrity. Your pursuit of the truth and civility causes you to be a beacon of them. Maybe it's that life should be full of laughter. Your thirst to giggle might make you something of a comedian. Perhaps a strong value of yours is novelty. Your need for new experiences causes you to be a breath of fresh air to others who feel stagnant. We tend to have less control over our values as they can be carved into our neurology from a young age and are often intrinsic to our nature. Core principles. Next, let's look at what might be your most important rules, your core principles. Even if you already know your core principles, keep watching because you may see something that gives you another idea. These are also deep in our psychology, but we do have the power to change them by conscious thought if we want to. I often encourage people to start with what they consider to be the most important things in their life, or in other words, what seems to keep recurring the most. Yet another way, in case that's not working, what kinds of things make you consistently the angriest? Whatever those are can be the things that you might identify as the ultimate what not to do actions. Do you detest rude people? Perhaps being polite and kind is one of your core principles. Does it drive you nuts when people tell you, I can't? Maybe always being willing to try is a core principle for you. Lose your mind when you see trash lying around? Leave it better than you found it might be up your core principle alley. The idea is to come up with 3 to 5 rules that are nearest and dearest to your heart, though I recommend limiting it to 3 because we already have too much to remember these days. Also, simplification can be beautiful and is often effective. Can you get away with 1 or 2? Sure, but you have to be confident that it or they cover enough ground. Come up with a list of as many as you can think of. Then calibrate with your friends, family, and people you trust to be honest in order to help you narrow down to your cores. Be prepared to be surprised at their observations of what they think is important to you. Check your initial reactions too. You may think they're way off base, but if more than one of them agrees on something, it's worth it to reflect and at least identify what you're doing that could be causing that perception. My inner circle, and even instances outside of it, have been paramount in helping me winnow down my core principles. More importantly, people who care about you and who you trust to be honest to you can also help you stick to them or modify them if you've missed the mark. The rest of your principles. Now that you know the main 3 or 4 guiding rules that everything comes back to for you, you can expand and start applying some thought into rules that don't come up as often or aren't as integral to your identity. That doesn't mean they don't contribute to your identity. They absolutely do, but perhaps less than those few core versions. A note on flexibility with something as important as rules. I've mentioned before that I'm more into ideas than beliefs, and this still applies. The difference with rules is that these ideas are about ourselves and can be reinforced in healthy ways. Reinforced ideas don't have to turn into beliefs, though they often do, even when they're about ourselves, and I find myself frequently revisiting my rules to see if they're still serving me. And that's the point here, is what you're doing, believing, acting on, serving you. Your rule may be to scream at someone from inside your car when they've done something you disagree with. Do you feel better? Do you actually feel better? Do the people riding in the car with you feel better? It's complicated. There's no easy answer, but it is valuable to retain some flexibility, even in your rules, as you continue to review them for productivity in your life. The absolute ultimate resource on rule flexibility, why it's important, and when and where to apply it is Think Again by Adam Grant. I can't say enough good things about that book, though I will likely attempt to in future videos. Beyond your core principles, you can, and probably do, have hundreds of rules. They can range from how you act in public to how you operate in the workplace to what you do in your private time. My invitation to you is to scrutinize them all as you come across them. Remember, each rule is yours because somebody gave it to you or because you invented it, but either way, you have decided this is a rule that belongs to you. I've heard countless variations on why people won't bend or reconsider the rules, ranging from, that's just who I am, to, that's how things are in my culture. You're making a choice. Culture is just exposure. At some point, you're choosing to continue to act out what you've learned by those you grew up with. Your rules can benefit you or they can hinder you, and will often do both. It's simply worth it to evaluate them and see which effect is happening with your choices. The principle. Mapping and identifying your main and most consistent ideas can help you know yourself in a most useful way. In this video, I mentioned calibrating with trusted resources and ideas versus beliefs. If you haven't seen it yet, check out Calibrate Your Way of Thinking to Optimize Your Thought Process. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe for more like it. Click on the notification bell to be alerted to new videos.